Okay, Chevra, major topic today. One of the most important parts of the messianic unfolding of Moshiach's mission is to return all the exiles. That's not a small job. The entire of the nation of Israel has to come back. What's called kibbutz golius has to all come back to the land of Israel, like we saw in the Rambam. And my dear friends, this is something that we have been longing for 2,000 years. Crying out 3 times a day, Tika b'shofar gadol l'chereseinu. The sun nays l'kabetz g'liyaseinu v'kabtzeinu yachad me'arba kanfei sa'aretz. Hashem, bring back the Yidden. Bring us home. Bring the boys home. Bring the boys home. It's time to come home. And one of the greatest proofs of the messianic arrival is this is happening before our very eyes. There's more Jews right now in the land of Israel and has been since the first temple. Europe, anti-Semitism continues to rise, and there are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands returning in France. Thousands are returning to the land of Israel, buying properties, establishing, coming to their homes. In America also, many are finding and feeling a need to come home. And there's a natural feeling as part of the messianic unfolding that this is it. We're flocking home now. Should get good property now before the French get it all. Baruch Hashem. The kibbutz golius is on. And one of the main missions of Moshiach is to bring home all these sparks. King David himself says, B'nai Yerushalayim Hashem, Hashem, you're building up Jerusalem. Nidchei Yisrael Yechanes, and you're going to return all of the exiles back to Zion. The building of Jerusalem is so evident. There's more cranes on the Jerusalem skyscape than maybe anywhere, any major city. Just walk around the streets of Yerushalayim here. Everyone's building. It's noisy. There's building. The light rail is by the way, they're expanding in every single direction, the light rail. They're getting ready, literally, that hordes and flocks of people from all over the world will be able to systematically come to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash, to bring the korbanos. We're setting up Jerusalem for the final binyan. When I go into, my Rebbe always says this, in the Mamilla Mall there, the Mamilla Mall is going to be turned into the most boutique, high-end korban shops. Fancy korbanos, fancy shepselas, fancy turtle doves. It's going to be wonder. It's already set up. Jerusalem is being built. Every one of the buildings are going into additional expansion, more building, Yerushalayim. And a main part of this is that Moshiach is a major player in this consciousness of building up Yerushalayim, bringing people back to Yerushalayim. The exile which has gone on for so long, thousands of years, of us being dispersed to the 4 corners of the globe. Me'arba kanfei sa'aretz. Literally, there's Chabad, Baruch Hashem, on every single corner of the globe. Why? Because there's sparks, there's souls that are there in the middle of Thailand, some far-flung place in Papua New Guinea, somewhere in the, you're on like some rhinoceros in the Congo rainforest, in the Congo with the bush people over there, and all of a sudden you're like mamish getting into it with the rhino, and but before you know it, another rhino like rams into you, and it's a Chabad guy, and he's like, tefillin, like, oh my goodness, how did you find me over here? It's like, we find you everywhere. Baruch Hashem, mamish. We're locating all of these sparks in India. Baruch Hashem, we have a tzaddik, Rabbi Dovber, that would go, and there's many other shluchim there that are finding, they're going to the ashrams, they're going to the places, they're finding, and they're extricating and bringing home back to Yerushalayim. But you should know that exile is not only a physical state, Of course, there's also the idea of being physically exiled from your land, which we've been for so long, and now we're coming back home. But exile is also a state of mind. I could be sitting in the middle of Yerushalayim, but I could be in the biggest exile because my mind is so disturbed, is so flooded with exile consciousness. This is the idea of das. Like the prophet Isaiah says, that my nation has gone into exile because it has no das. Das, like we spoke about yesterday, but being intimately connected to something. Just to make it clear, the first time we find das is the Eitz das, which means that there was a tree that was the Eitz das, and we were connected to that tree. It's the tree where good and evil become merged into one. I can't separate. That was the tree that Adam ate. He didn't know which was good and which is not good. When Adam ate from that tree, he was allowed to eat from that tree if he would have waited until Shabbat. If he would have eaten from the tree of life first, he would have been able to eat from the Eitz das afterwards on Shabbos. But he made a mistake by eating from the Eitz das, the tree of knowledge. Knowledge, like we said, is not the right translation of das. It's the tree of deep connection, but good and evil being sugemished, being melted together. That now humanity descended into the state we don't really know what's good, what's not good. Should I be doing that? Should I not be doing that? Why don't we wake up in the morning with crystal clarity? This is my purpose in life today. Wouldn't that be amazing? You could wake up in the morning and know exactly what we do know. But there's one thing to know it here, and there's another thing to integrate it into my heart. So the Eitz das Tevara meant that everything became muddled. It's not clear what I'm supposed to do. I'm intimately connected to good and evil, but it's confusing. In the lashon of the Ramchal, it's murky. A light post looks like a human, and a human looks like a light post. When the sun is going down, it's not black yet, but it's not light. So I look at a light post. Is that my friend in the distance? I can't see. Oh no, is that my friend? Or is that a light post or my friend? So that's actually more dangerous than it being totally black and not seeing anything. Because when it's black, then you're careful. Okay, I have to put up a sign. I better not nail a sign into this light post. I can't even see anything. But when I look at the light post and it looks like a person, or a person in the light, I might just start nailing up a sign there. I might not realize it's the wrong thing to be doing. So good and evil became very muddled together. Once Adam bit from that apple, from that fruit, it's not easy to navigate what's good and what's not. It's amazing that the symbol of the computer is the apple with the bite out of it. Because it has all the good, but all the other than good. And it's not always clear. It's a little bit murky. Can I use it for the good? I can. Can it go in the other way? Hashem Yirachem, it can. The tree of life, which is the Torah, helps me separate and find the good and weed out the good. So this was the exile that we plummeted into. It was an exile in Das, where we stopped connecting intimately to our mission in this world. And that's what it means that we splintered to the far reaches of this world. We didn't know that our mission was to come to Yerushalayim, was to come and connect ourselves to eternal wisdom of Torah, which is really, nowadays, my friends, this should be basically the only thing that you're really involved in is Torah and mitzvahs. Of course, everyone has to work. I mean that very seriously. But if my work is not infused with Torah and mitzvahs, then something is murky, something is lacking. And this is the time where our das, which Moshiach is going to teach us to feel intimately connected. Our das went into Golus, which happened also in Mitzrayim, happened in Egypt. And it means that I'm not connected to my mission. And Moshiach is going to start bringing us back home. and bring us back home, connecting us to our mission, which is intimately connected to this land. So I could be here in Yerushalayim, but if my das is somewhere else, then I'm far away. But you know, my friends, I could be somewhere in Brooklyn, I could be in Tokyo, I could be in France, I could be in Budapest, I could be in LA, I could be in Florida, I could be in Argentina, I could be anywhere. But if my das, if my thoughts are deeply rooted in Jerusalem, then I'm here. Like the Baal Shem Tov said, you are where your thoughts are at. Wherever your thoughts are at, that's where you are. So it's a good idea to take take some stock of, where are my thoughts? Where am I really at? Because if I can see where my thoughts are, I'll know where I'm really at. And therefore I could have a penthouse suite in the old city of Jerusalem looking at the Temple Mount. But I could be in the biggest exile because I'm thinking about every single other thing that's happening. But I could also be someplace in the middle of Nashville, Tennessee, and I could be thinking about Yerushalayim and yearning to come home. I could be in my bedroom right now, somewhere in America, on some university campus, and be dying to just yearning for Yerushalayim and yearning for the Torah. And my das, I'm so deeply connected to it that I am here. I'm back. And everybody knows what Chazal say, that any place of Torah learning, even if it's not in Israel, a place of Torah learning outside the land of Israel, but they give their heart and their soul to learning Torah, and that could be your bedroom in some dorm room somewhere. But you give your heart and soul to the Torah, that base medrash, when Moshiach comes, either will be miraculous, or by some natural means, that base medrash will be transported and land in the land of Israel. So all the holy congregations that are pouring their hearts out for Torah and for Avodas Hashem, no matter where you are, you will be picked up and brought to Israel. As long as you're intimately connected to the Torah. But the idea of gathering the exiles has to go one step further. And the following is mature content. The Arizal explains that when we talk about gathering the exiles, we're not just talking about bringing human beings, physical people, a bunch of bodies back within the borders of the land of Israel. We're talking about something more profound as well. What does the Arizal mean? The following is going to be a brief discussion. The entirety of it is well beyond the scope of our shir right now, as it's based in much more Kabbalah. But we're just going to introduce the idea. Before Hashem created the world, all there was what's called Oira Yisboach, the Or Ein Sof, the infinite one, the one that we can't call anything, because infinite can't be given any definition, any label. So we use in the negative, the one that's not finite, the infinite one. And when Hashem wanted, when Hashem wanted, so to speak, to create the world, His light was so great that there could be no creation. His essence is so powerful, there could be no creation. It would be like going and having a nice date, with your wife on the face of the sun. It wouldn't be such a long date. It wouldn't work. So Hashem, so to speak, concealed Himself. He was mitzamtzem. He withheld that light and made a space where creation could exist. And none of this is physical. These are all conceptual. And then Hashem took a ray of His pure light, Me'oira Yisboach, the Kav, and He sent that ray of light into the Chalal, into that space. And the light made vessels, but the light was too strong for the vessels, so the vessels broke. And more light was pushed into the creation, but the vessels continued to shatter and splinter and splice, and those vessels which had godly light in them and do, splintered and went to the far reaches of all of creation. And the godly light was spread to the four corners, Ad Katzei HaShamayim, far, far into the abysses, into the dark, dark netherworlds of creation. And those sparks needed to be redeemed, needed to be brought back. And then when Adam was created after he ate from that tree, and he created a tremendous amount of darkness, there was more sparks that got lost and got splintered. And these fallen sparks were taken by forces of darkness, and they were concealed, and they were pushed deeper into the dark abysses of creation. And man's entire job would be to go forth and gather these sparks and return them to their true source. Not to be separate from their creator, so to speak, but to conceptually, all of this is happening conceptually, to unify them, to bring them back to their source. All those sparks, to bring them back, to unify them. An ingathering of the exiled sparks of godliness. Because when a person looks into the world right now, you don't necessarily see God. You just see a bunch of broken pieces and broken people and broken things everywhere. And if God is one, why don't I see that unified ingathering of everybody together as one? The answer is because the sparks have not yet all been gathered. But a hint to the gathering of the forces, a gathering of the sparks, is the ingathering of Israel. These sparks, when Adam was still in the garden and afterwards left his wife, so Adam found somebody else, and Adam spilled seed. And that seed, the reproductive seed, is the most powerful sparks that exist in creation. Those are sparks that create life. And by just spilling that seed and not putting it into a place that it could become something, the forces of darkness took those sparks further and deeper into that abyss. And the mission has been since then to gather those lost sparks and to prevent any more from going into those dispersed regions of creation. And all of us are responsible for gathering those sparks in and pulling them back and unifying them conceptually with Hashem. And specifically, the creation of life, having children, is the greatest, most powerful way to take sparks that are far away and to draw down a soul. A soul is that spark of God, and to draw that soul into the world. The Gemara in Yevamos says something very unbelievable. It says that a person who does not engage in having children, who holds back from having children, not that they're trying to, but they can't, that's another story, but they're refraining from having children, the Gemara says it's as if they're committing murder. Very intense. And that they're taking away the godly image in the world. Let's understand that for a moment. Why should that be? The answer is, those are souls, those are sparks that are yearning to come back into creation, to be unified, an ingathering of the exiles, not just from Papua New Guinea, from all of the realms, to pull back those souls, to unify them back under the light of Torah, to bring them all back, to unify all the sparks. And a person is withholding from that souls that could have been alive, and he's not allowing them to come down. It's as if he's preventing that life from being. Because he's too busy with his career, he's too busy with whatever. And those souls will have what to say afterwards. Why didn't you help me come back? I wanted to be unified in this world. And now there's less souls, there's less power to reveal God's name and God's image in the world. And that's why specifically today, the way the world is, the forces of the Yetzer Hara are specifically stronger than ever in the areas of sexual impurity, encouraging people to do whatever they want and whatever you feel like and just do anything you want, and spilling of seed, and in fact maybe it's good for you, medically, and all of this stuff completely against the purity of bringing holy children into the world, completely against it. And that's why these forces are very involved with having very small amounts of children, 0.1 kids, whatever a 0.1 child is. And everything is conception, is contraception, or abortions. There even exists something nowadays, Hashem Yirachem Mamish, called post-birth abortions, which that's mamish just called murder. Because maybe if the child does not have the faculties of memory yet, he's not actually called alive. Hashem Yirachem. And who's having kids anymore? We're too busy with work, we're too busy with our careers. I was laughing with my wife, we were going to pick up a car in Philadelphia, and I was going to the dealership, and I saw this very nice looking, looked like a hotel. And I looked closely, and in fact it was a boutique hotel. But it was a boutique hotel not for human beings, but for dogs. And you would drop off your dog there, and you would get a perm, pedicure, manicure, maybe a wax, the whole thing, bubble baths. And they're like these accessories. But kids, who's got time for kids? They're pain in the neck. The children are the future of everything. The future of everything. And this whole culture, what gets attention nowadays? Someone posts something of themselves doing something totally not becoming of them. And that arouses sexual impurity, and the seed is being spilled and is not going to that place where it can generate life. And at the end of days, because the Yetzer Hara knows that his end is near, my friends. So I'll give you two analogies to what happens when somebody knows that their end is imminent. The first is of two people that are fighting, and one of the opponents is fighting stronger. The other opponent is on the ropes. Right before his demise, get all his power last, because he knows it's going to be finished. So right now it's the biggest proof that we're at the end of Mamish, because the Yetzer Hara is putting everything forward to make everything impure sexually. Which means he is almost done, my friends. To hold strong in this. Hold strong in this. And analogy number two is a candle. When the oil is going out and the candle is about to be extinguished, it starts flickering and going crazy. So this specifically, the sexual impurity, now more than ever, is going rampant and moving away from children and moving away from a binary system of healthy, holy children, and an obsession with family planning. Hashem Yirachem. And to this, I want to address and make a note of someone, Kanye West, because he mentioned something, which is that if he were to become the president, then anyone who had a child, he would give $1 million. So I want to respond to that, Kanye, and I want to tell you that I think you're correct. However, I want to add on and say that $1 million is extremely cheap. And really it should be billions and trillions of dollars to have a child, the Kedusha v'Tahara, a holy child, that you're bringing back the sparks, the true exiles, into this world in a state of holiness. And therefore, I do believe that your approach is good, to encourage families and to encourage people to have children. But we have to up the amount much more. And I'll add, I think you should give them all Yeezys, baby ones, a couple for their bar mitzvah as well, to everyone who has children. And B'ezrat Hashem, with this consciousness that Mashiach is going to bring all the exiles back, not just the exiles physically, but all the sparks are all going to come back, and we're going to have the full rectification. And with that, we're going to have the rebuilt Yerushalayim, and we're going to be dancing, us, all of our families and our children together, and our children's children for all eternity, here in the Yerushalayim Shel Mata and the Yerushalayim Shel Ma'ala, together with Mashiach Tzimkeinu B'mher V'Yameinu. Amen.
Amen.
Shukayach.